Herkese merhabalar, iyi akşamlar diliyoruz. Bugün bir değerli üniversitemiz daha olan University of Nottingham'ı ağırlıyoruz British Education biri olarak. Ben eğitim uzmanı İmran Mehmet. Bugün arkadaşım Safa Doğru ile birlikte resmi temsilcisi olduğumuz University of Nottingham'da değerli akademisyenimiz Dr. Wang'ı ağırlıyor olacağız. FinTech alanındaki ve aynı zamanda makine öğrenmesiyle ilgili bilgiler aktarıyor olacak akademisyenimiz. Ben sözü Dr. Wang'a bırakmadan önce çok kısa British Education Bureau'dan bahsetmek isterim sizlere. Öncelikli olarak biz Nottingham Üniversitesi'nin Türkiye'deki resmi temsilciliğini yapan kurumuz. Temsil ettiğimiz üniversitelerin Türkiye'deki tanıtım faaliyetlerini gerçekleştiriyoruz. Aynı zamanda üniversitelerin Türkiye'deki organizasyonlarını yapan kurumuz. 2002 yılında Oxford'da kurulduk. İngiliz ve Türk kuruculara sahip bir yapımız bulunmaktadır. Son 20 yıldır Ankara, İstanbul, İzmir'deki ofislerimizde öğrencilerimize hizmet sağlamaya devam ediyoruz. Uzmanlık alanımız tamamen Birleşik Krallık eğitim sistemidir. Üniversitelerin giriş şartları, başvuru süreçleri, konaklama ve vize aşamaları boyunca ücretsiz bir şekilde desteklerimizi sürdürüyoruz öğrencilerimiz için. Tüm danışmanlık kadromuz Birleşik Krallık eğitim sistemine hakim. Bu konularda sürekli olarak eğitimler almaya devam eden bir yapıdan oluşmaktadır. Birleşik Krallık'ta toplam 130 tane devlet üniversitesi bulunmaktadır. Biz BEB olarak 130 üniversitenin 90'ını Türkiye'deki resmi temsilciliğini gerçekleştiriyoruz. Temsilciliğini yaptığımız üniversiteler için de demiş olduğum gibi ücretsiz bir şekilde hizmet sağlamaya devam ediyoruz. Bizleri daha sonraki etkinliklerimiz için web sitemiz, Instagram sayfamız ve Facebook üzerinden bu adreslerimizden takip edebilirsiniz. Aynı zamanda İstanbul, Ankara, İzmir, Lefkoşa'daki ofislerimize de bu numaralardan ulaşabilirsiniz. Her iki konuda da sorularınız oldukça hem chatbox üzerinden yazılı olarak ya da el kaldırma butonuyla sesli bir şekilde sunum sırasında veya sunumda rahatlıkla paylaşabilirsiniz. Akademisyenimizle birlikte sunum sonunda sorularınızı yanıtlıyor olacağız. Thank you very much, Dr. Wang. It's yours now.
Okay, thank you. Let me share my screen. Okay, so welcome everyone. Welcome to attend today's taster lecture. And I'm going to share my taster lecture to you. And let me full screen my. So today I'm going to discuss an introduction to machine learning and also some applications in FinTech. And I suppose this is the taster lecture, so it's a kind of a first lecture in this module that I'm going to deliver. So it will be part of the lecture 1 in this module. So because this is the first lecture and the audience come from different background, today I will give a general introductions. I will now come to more deeper technology part, just a basic background introduction. So let me start from the outline of today's presentation. So today I will discuss the textbook for this topic and also introduce the course content. And then I will focus on the introduction of some machine learning technologies and the applications in FinTech. Right, so first thing first, so for this module, and this is the core module of this program, FinTech, our master in financial technology. So, and this module is one of the core module. And this module we call it is the data analytics and machine learning in FinTech. So this will be our main textbook. It's to discuss some application of data skills and the machine learning and the applications. And for this course, this module, we cover about around 10 topics. So today I give a taste lecture. We talk about the introduction for machine learning and their application. And after that, we are going to second part is about some data management and the review of Python programming. So by the way, this module will be in our second semester, the spring semester. So in the first semester, the autumn semester, student will study one of the core modules is called Python programming. So after first semester and the student have some backgrounds in Python programming and then come to this module talking about the application of Python in the machine learning. And then we come to the third topics in the machine learning is the so-called dimensionality reduction. And then we discuss some methods, start from simple and basic one, single regression, and gradually we'll discuss the multiple regression and the logistic regression. And this is the linear methods. And then we're going to discuss some non-linear methods, for example, the naive Bayes method and the KNN method. And then more like the support vector machines method. But this will be the first part of this module. And after that, we move to more deep knowledge, like decision trees and more complicated random forest algorithm. And then we move to another method, is a kind of like a so-called unsupervised method. That is the k-means clustering. And then after this methods, we spend another whole week to discuss some cases, like the classification cases, the regression cases. We will discuss the application of applying machine learning on some financial topics, for example, forecast the stock returns, or like give assessments to some companies, the credit status. And after that, we move to the last two advanced topics, and that's so-called deep learning in the neural network. And after this week 10, we almost finish this module. And the last week, we discussed some like computer science knowledge is about the database design and the so-called SQL language. Okay, so this is the general introduction about this module. And today I will discuss some background about machine learning and the application in FinTech. So firstly, we give an overview about the so-called data analytics and machine learning or artificial intelligence. These are two parts that are quite popular in nowadays. So when people are talking about big data analytics, artificial intelligence, so what do they mean? So usually these two big topics are around this machine learning. So inside the machine learning, we divide this big topic about machine learning to so-called supervised learning. So in our module, most of the time, we will discuss this supervised learning, like regression, this decision trees. And the second type of method is called reinforcement learning. And this part we will not cover. And then the third part is so-called unsupervised learning. And this part we will cover a few classical and the typical method, like the k-means clustering method. And the last one is the deep learning. Deep learning is quite complicated, but in our module, we only cover the basic knowledge. And especially nowadays, we have a lot of Python programming libraries that can provide a simple we just need to use some simple Python language, and then we can call this the complicated deep learning methods. So after we learn this module, it shouldn't be quite difficult when we're talking about this introduction of deep learning technologies. So this is the general introduction. And for example, so when we use the machine learning to discuss the application, for example, for the trading in the stock market, so usually we use the supervised learning. So so-called supervised, it means that we design some targets, or we provide the data, the model, and we use the data to train this model. And this is the basic application for machine learning. But for our finance, especially for this stock trading, we also provide some trading policy. And in this trading markets, there's one of the particular skills called back testing. And it's a kind of, we use some historical data or simulated data to test our model. And then we can go to the live trading. So this is some general framework and the application of the machine learning in our algorithmic trading. So after we have a general image about the application of machine learning, now today, the next part, I'm going to go through some typical applications. So what we mean the machine learning, okay, in FinTech. So we want to use a large volume of data in the financial markets or in financial industry to train our machine learning algorithms. So after we train these machine learning algorithms, we can apply these algorithms to many financial services. I'm going to go through some typical financial services with the application of machine learning. For example, we want to do some asset management, and we want to do some risk evaluation. And for example, we want to examine companies' credit scores, for example, in our case. And then we also maybe want to use machine learning to detect some financial fraud, or you ask machine learning to do some automate trading and or provide some financial advisory. So let me start from this picture. Okay, this picture shows that in the recent 2 to 5 years, there are trends in the FinTech. So the first one, of course, is the machine learning and the artificial intelligence. So we can expect that these technologies still take like 30% of the task in current FinTech industry. And in recent years, in the short time, this institution, they want to unify these existing processes to be ready for the technology, the FinTech. And in the long run, this working loads will be lower. And at the same time, they will increase the task about the wealth management, platforms development, and also some blockchain technologies. And then this digital banking or the digital payment is the kind of stable in FinTech industry business. And a little bit surprised, this Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, actually, they are not quite important for this FinTech industry compared with the other business. So let's look at some application one by one. The first one, of course, is quite easy to think, is to use the machine learning to forecast stock returns. And this will be one of our main topics also in our case studies and also in our coursework. So the idea is very simple. We have tons of data every day, every year. So how do we use this data to serve our financial investment? So people use machine learning algorithms or deep learning algorithms to learn these stock data and try to discover some patterns. And these patterns can indicate these dynamics of a stock market. And then we can also ask these machine learning algorithms to determine our strategies and to choose some pattern of the trading strategies. So this is quite the whole topic. And why this application is so popular, because the predictive abilities of machine learning is quite large. And they can even detect some slightest indicators as the human maybe we cannot find out. And they also can easily compare like a large volume of data. Now, if we want, especially some traders, they want to make a profit, the timing is very important. So just maybe a few seconds late, it will lead to some losses. So it's very critical to make a quick decision. And the machine learning is quite good at this part. And also, of course, after we set up the algorithm, this method will be free of a human interruption. So this is one of the application. Now, for example, there are some companies in the world, they are famous for this application, like this Sentient Technologies. And this is the AI company, and they use they develop some algorithms and strategies as these patterns, and they use that to do some trading. The second one is called Walnut algorithm, and this is the new company, and they do quite well in this machine learning solutions for this investment management. The last example is the so-called I Know First, and they offer some quite good prediction to the market. So this is the first and the most important application. And based on the stock market's prediction, and we can develop so-called algorithmic trading strategies. And these strategies will use the machine and use algorithms to make a faster decision. So usually this application in the stock prediction, they come together. They can make thousands of fast trade every day. And usually when people make these investments, it's quite difficult for humans to eliminate their interruption of emotions. But as the machine, as the algorithm, they can do that. They can do very well. So this algorithmic trading is quite popular in the hedge fund managers. And the first two applications is quite easy to think. The third one actually is quite important for banking industry. It's the fraud detection. Now, nowadays, the financial business, they store a lot of data. So it's very important to keep this data secure. And when we have some new orders or some tradings or some requirements, or some large monies coming out or some large transactions, it's very important to identify whether this is some fraud. So you use machine learning, we can scan the large data set. And from this large data set, we can easily identify some anomalies. And then this machine can notify our humans or people, and then we can investigate whether there are any flaws inside. And in addition to look at the financial data, they also can use other data like some IP address, the location. So, for example, if they identify some transaction in the UK, in the working hours of the UK, and some transaction, but the timing or the location is in another side of the world. So this kind of will trigger some machine learning scans to make sure the transaction is not a fraud. So similar like this, and this picture shows the process. For example, when we have some order or some transaction, and then the banking industry, they will use the machine learning models to look at this order and to estimate some fraud risk, give a ranking. And if the estimation risk is quite high, they may notify some manager or some human interruption, and they may make a decision to accept or reject. But this is the application of fraud detection. The advantage is quite obvious. So if we compare with the previous, the older human style fraud detection, is we want to catch some fraud scenarios. And usually we can only catch some quite obvious scenarios. And even that's need a huge amount of labor work. And also need to ask so many departments, many teams to close verification of this fraud detection. So the time is quite time consuming. As in the machine learning on the right-hand side, we show that the advantages is that we can find some even hidden or implicit correlation in the data, and that's may relate to some fraud scenario. And this can reduce the number of work and reduce the time processing. So the benefits is quite obvious if we can use the machine learning on fraud detection. So in the world, there are many companies are quite famous on that. For example, this FinTech'te is one of the company offer very powerful engines to detect the fraud in this financial market. And the second one, BioCatch, they use some new technology. In addition to machine learning, they also use some behavior like biometrics features to detect any fraud business. And the last one is called Robin, and this is the London business, and they use machine learning to stop some fraud in especially the online payment. And this is one of the main application. Another one is also quite interesting. Nowadays, maybe you already see some advertisement, maybe in your mobile phone. They recommend some prime phone for investment, use some machine learning methods. And this we call is the Robo Advisor. And they use this algorithm to build a portfolio for users, for customers. And this portfolio including different assets. So as there's some as some common people, if we don't learn too much of financial knowledge, it may be quite difficult for us to make a decision to look at so many financial assets and instruments. But for use this robo advisors, they can provide this easy solution for us. And usually the fee is quite cheap because there are a large number of users use that. So they don't have to charge us the high fees. And they can look at this real-time news to make a quick decision. And the strategy is quite diversified. So if we learn some knowledge about finance, even though it's very important to build a diversification strategy to kind of reduce our risk. Another one application is called loan underwriting. And this one usually is we use the machine learning methods to look at the data to evaluate this borrower's credit status. And this, if we use machine learning to do that, we can simplify this process and can make a decision quite quick and fast. And they also use this machine learning to look at different kind of data, like our age, our occupation, or some other spending history. So it can make a quick and best estimation to our credit scores and make a decision about our loan applications. And the processes look like this. So when we put our application, and then we look at our historical data, our historical records about our characteristics or payments records. And then they will use some so-called features selection. And this will connect it through one of our course contents about this so-called dimension reduction. So we pick the most important features and make a ranking of these features and to make the first initial judgment. And if this application is not good, and then we just reject. And if this application looks like good, and we move to the next stage, and we look at the up-to-date data, and then we use the algorithm to look at this data to make a decision. So this is the typical application flow of the law underwriting. There are a lot of companies that are doing this. For example, it's that's the finance. They try to work on this, and in addition to make a quick decision, at the same time they also can provide some profits to the banks, and to this company. And the second one is quite helpful to some particular people and applicants, especially for someone who apply for credit cards at the first time, or they have bad history in their credit card, want to rebuild their credits. And this company, they provide this technology to kind of dig out some potential for the applicant. And the last one is the interliers, and they use this algorithm to help a business, help borrowers to get funding. And in our module, we also look at one of the cases to use machine learning to evaluate companies' credit scores. Another application, maybe it's not easy for us to think about, but for industry, it's quite important. It's called regulatory compliance. Nowadays, especially after 2008 financial crisis, there are so many regulations and the policies and laws these banks, they have to follow. Now, for example, in end of last year, maybe you heard that this UK, this financial industry, there's the news, the HSBC and some other banks, they were fined by the regulatory because they somehow they don't follow some policies or do something wrong. Okay, so it's very important for banks to follow this regulatory compliance. So, but this is quite complicated. So we use machine learning can help a lot. And especially they can automatically track and monitor some regulatory changes. And the process is like this, and we have law, and of course this we have to follow, and we have some requirements from different upper layer bodies. And then we have some rules set up, and we have some standards to follow, and we have some governance, and we have regulations, and we need to keep some transparency and follow some policies. So all of this come together, we call regulatory compliance. And it's quite complicated things, and we need to use the machine learning to help us. And there are some companies, they are quite famous on that, and like this, the Pendle system. And they can find out some information from the so-called unstructured data. This data usually is like some text, some document. So we want to make this text and document as data to do some analysis. And machine learning is very good at this. And second one is called compliance.ai, and this company, they use machine learning to automate this process for regulatory updates. And the last one is for compliance advantage, and this company, they can like keep the regulatory compliance. They can also kind of prevent the fraud in the market. So this is the regulatory. And another one, actually, we may have experience in this called automated customer support. And for example, nowadays, for example, if you make some claims to insurance company, or you want to get some refund from some bigger websites, sales websites, And at the beginning, you need to start to chat with some machine chatbot. And usually they have some typical questions, can answer you, can provide some common answers, so for some common questions. So this is very important in the fintech industry to look after customers, to reduce the waiting time for customer support. And this is process, actually nowadays we not just simply use the chatbot. And this is the process of reinforcement learning. So as the company, they continue learn this information from customer, from this management, from this machine learning platform. And this will keep improving the ability of a machine. And some famous companies on this side, for example, is the Casistro, and they provide us their technology to look at a few different channels for virtual assistants. And second one is the Wells Fargo, and this is the first US bank to launch this AI-driven customer chat experience. And the last one, also American example, is the Bank of America's the Erica. And when this was launched in the 2018, just the first 3 months, the users is over 1 million. So it demonstrates a huge potential in fintech. Another application I want to discuss today is the so-called background scanning. Actually, this one is quite closely related to some previous application like fraud detection, loan underwriting. And these things, they use the so-called natural language processing method and the image recognition technologies to look at some document related to our normal lives, or to look at some images from satellite to make some background screening of our customers to look at their applications. And after look at each case one by one, and in the last part of today, I'm going to look at a few typical big examples. And this example, these cases, they use the few different technologies together. Now, one example I want to discuss is the one digital bank called Monzo in London. And this is the new fintech banks a few years ago, and it's developed quite fast. Now attracts a large number of customers. And to be a customer of this digital bank is very simple, and just use the mobile phone to answer a few questions in a few minutes, and to upload your image and your ID. Just a few minutes, they can approve your application, and then you will become one of the customers to these banks. And they use the machine learning and some more higher technologies to simplify this process, to make a quick decision and to manage so many different business. And they make this so many historical complex process in banking to be done in this fintech platform in just a few minutes. So it's quite famous. If you're interested, you can search that. Another example I want to talk is the BlackRock. This investment company, they offer is Aladdin, this system. This system, they help managers to look at this risk, to look at their portfolio, and to make some informed investment decisions, and can provide quite efficient decisions. And another example is the cities in the trade solution group with the FinTech'te. FinTech'te I mentioned before, and they provide some real-time risk management, and they provide their clients some enhance the risk control and payment and transaction management. They use the machine learning and the deep learning technologies to compare some possible data and preceding this transaction and to look at these transactions to make sure this transaction, these orders comply with the regulatory requirement. Okay, so, and the last example, I think most of us have experienced. So we use the Netflix or Amazon or these different technology companies. Actually, they use a lot of fintech or machine learning technologies. They focus our customers' preferences. And they also detect our detection, like whether these customers can turn to some subscription or not. For example, like Amazon, they provide some free trial to customers, and then they can learn your behavior, and then they will try to provide some advertisements to attract you to be their customer. Okay, and sometimes they may send some emails to you and provide some loyalty vouchers or programs according to your preferences. So all of this need a lot of machine learning calculation to learn our behavior, to forecast our behaviors. Okay, so I think this is the end of my presentation, and I list some references support my talking. Okay, so I think now is the time for questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wang, for the presentation and the information. We can wait for a couple of minutes for the questions. Okay. And it would be great if you can share your email address if they have, the students have questions.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. This is my email address. Okay. Here is my email address. And we have some chat boxes. This question.
Yeah. Let me help you about that. What about energy usage or cost of ML and AI, machine learning and
Yes, this is an interesting question. Yeah, in the energy business, actually not just energy business, there's so many businesses that start to deploy machine learning in AI. They can I'm not sure in your country, but in the UK, when we look at this, we have a number of energy suppliers, and they provide a different tariff schedules and the process. And you can see they look at, for example, how much do you use in a year, and they provide the different pricing schemes. So they make these policy schemes to customers. Actually, they do a lot of analysis. They use the machine learning or some other technologies to analyze the huge number of customers' usage of energy and to make the best schedule for these companies to make sure they can earn the profit. So this is for the usage in the cost. This is the application for machine learning in these energy companies. Yes.
Thank you very much. We can wait for a couple of more minutes. Sorularınızı sesli olarak da el kaldırma butonuyla sorabilirsiniz bu arada. Yeah, one more question.
Okay.
How the entire world's transition to machine learning trading will affect entire trading? Will there be competition based on whose algorithm is better or who has access to more data?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, this is an interesting topic. Yeah, this is so many people are discussing about this trend. Yeah, that's true in the whole world. So I guess almost all of these trading, these companies, these investment companies or traders, they try to use the machine learning technologies, especially some bigger companies, hedge funds, these mutual funds. They use this machine learning. The first one, they want to detect some patterns. So in order to do that, they need to have some good algorithms. And if we look at some job market advertisement, you will find out so many these financial intelligence companies, they try to recruit people who are good at financial technology, or they good at some machine learning and programming. So they recruit so many experts to study this data to find a good algorithm, and this can help them earn more profit. For example, I mentioned this company, for example, but like this company, they apply their old trading strategies and algorithm to look at this financial markets to get the better focus and the better profit. So this is a huge competition. But I think that this is the good part for the whole market. So I'm not sure whether you heard about so-called market efficiency. So if so many investors, they use the technology to dig out some anomalies in the stock prices, and actually it's good for the markets. It will make the markets more efficient. The price will reflect the background information more efficiently. So it's from the long run, it's the good side. But for the short run, of course, the competition is quite fierce around this business. Yes.
Mhm. Thank you very much. Yeah, one more. There's Ni Hao, Dr. Wang. I have a few questions. You have talked about some companies that use a fintech. How do they train their data? How are those data obtained? Besides reinforcement learning, what else is popular among fintech? For satellite image recognition, is CNN still the best option? About automations, are they expert systems that specialize in finance?
Okay, thank you. So let me look at this one by one. So yeah, how do they train their data? Actually, it's train their model, right? So when we have this model, how do we train this model? And the idea is quite typical. And in our module, we also will discuss. Now, when we go to data, of course, the main part is come from the stock markets, financial market. And for the stock markets, but for the companies, the low applications, and this data also include this company's history, this credit records. So the data come from the public and also some news, and some data also come from these different companies or studies. So public data and the private data, and some commercial data. Now there are so many companies, they just provide the financial data, they organize the data and provide the data. So we need to pay quite a lot of money to buy this commercial data. And use the data, we train the model. In the model, we will discuss, generally speaking, I should mention here, is when we have data, usually we separate the data, for example, like 70% and 30%. 70% we call this the data is the training sample or training data. We use this data to train our models, and our models will learn this data. So-called trained models. In the model, we have so many parameters, and we use this data to train the model and to determine the value of these parameters. And then we have another 30% of this data is called testing data. So we use the model to predict this 30%. Suppose we don't know this 30% data, and we make some prediction. And then we compare this prediction and this 30% data. And we can build some mathematical calculation. It's called some criteria or some mechanism to look like whether our method, our parameters are good or not. And for example, one of the quite popular this measure is called R square. You may heard about that in your statistics module, R square. And there are more these measures. And then this is after we train this model, we find out some problem, we can go back to adjust our parameters. Okay, so this is the first question. And let me see the second one.
Yeah, that's besides reinforcement.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this is actually all of these methods, they're popular in FinTech and technology. I mentioned this, all of these 4 methods, that they have different advantages. Like supervised learning, for example, we want to predict the stock markets go up or go down. Usually we use the supervised learning. Unsupervised learning, for example, like we have a lot of company, like for example, this is the IT business, like Apple, Microsoft, this is the IBM. So if we put the data to the so-called unsupervised learning, one of the applications is that they will cluster. So allocate this company to different cluster, and we call, for example, this the K-means cluster. They cluster these companies, the similar company together to find out some similar patterns. And this method also quite popular. And also deep learning, of course, is quite popular. It kind of use the different layers to improve our accuracies. And so I can say all of these methods are popular in FinTech technology. And for this setter image, yes, CNN is still quite popular, but it's difficult to say which method is the best. Different methods, they have different advantages. And CNN is quite popular and powerful. And of course, this method is too difficult for postgraduate students. So in our postgraduate program, we don't discuss this topic. We only look at these deep learning technologies, some basic one like a neural network. Okay, and the last one, automation. Yeah, this is in financial business, and this expert system, of course, they train this system is good at finance. In some other business, like some engineering, they're good at other parts. Okay, and this is the one. And the next question, okay, course details. Yeah, course detail for the web.
I have already shared.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes. Just this web page. Yeah, also open here. It's the. It's this web page. Yeah, they provide a lot of information. Okay.
Mr. Wang, do you hear me? This is Arkham.
Yeah.
Thank you for showing this course web page, but I will be interested in more details like weekly resolution. I mean, how many weeks does this specific data analytics and machine learning for FinTech test course takes? How many weeks does it take? What other materials you use? That kind of details. Can I find those in Nottingham's webpage?
Yeah, it's like this. I'm not sure I can find a note, but usually in each module, it's like that we have 11 weeks. So in one term, we have 12 weeks. And usually we use 11 weeks to teach each module. So from here, you can see we have, for example, the first semester, usually each one will take 11 weeks. So in the first 11 weeks, we study this 3 modules. And semester 2, another 11 weeks, we study this module and some optional module. And another summer term is for dissertation. So usually each module we take 11 weeks. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So I think we covered all the questions. Thank you so much, Dr. Wang, for your
Thank you.
presentation once again. And we also hope to see you in Turkey soon.
Okay, thank
Fingers
you.
crossed. Thank you so much. Have a great day for you.
Okay, thank you. Have a good day.